happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. You guys can probably already tell that it is going down. Just by that title alone, you guys are definitely going to want to check this one out. So we got chaos breaking out during DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference after a Democratic senator decided they were going to storm the podium and ended up getting slammed and carted out in handcuffs as a result, guys. And I'm excited to get into this one, so we're gonna hop straight into it. All I ask that you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's hop straight into it, folks. Check this one out.
I hear you have more information on that video we played of Senator Padilla at this Kristi Noem event. There is reporting now that he was in fact arrested outside the room.
It appears that he was arrested outside the room, Christina. I am now in possession of video that was taken from a different angle of this same incident. The video you showed earlier shows Senator Padilla being escorted out of the room and quickly ends thereafter. The video that I have seen shows that what happens when he goes into that hallway, he is further pushed into the hallway by somebody wearing an FBI shirt. He is then pushed onto the ground and placed under arrest with his hands behind his back as he is face down on the floor by 3 additional officers. Obviously, we don't have full information about the altercation that led him to be pushed out of the room by personnel either from the Department of Homeland Security or the FBI. But this is yet another escalation between the Department of Homeland Security and those agents working at their disposal and lawmakers. Obviously, LaMonica McIver, a congresswoman from New Jersey, has now been indicted on 3 federal charges for which she could face up to 18 years in prison in an altercation that started not dissimilarly from this. You know, one of the things I was looking for is whether or not Senator Padilla himself put his hands back on those who were involved in that altercation with him, as LaMonica McIver is alleged to have done. And you can see from the video you're showing right now somewhat that Senator Padilla is pushing back or has his hands on the officer. From the video that I have seen, it's much clearer. At some point, he then stops resisting, puts his hands up, and nonetheless, they push him down the hallway, put him face down, his hands behind his back. He's arrested. I don't know yet what has going to come of this and where Senator Padilla has been taken. But this is a big escalation of what has been happening in California. Senator Padilla, as David was mentioning earlier, is a son of California. He grew up in Pacoima in Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley, where I'm also from. Pacoima is a heavily Latino community. Senator Padilla, born to immigrants. He himself is the pride of much of the Latino community in the Los Angeles area. To see him manhandled in this way, like a common everyday protester, is going to be particularly jarring for many who are watching.
All right, guys, so that looked like a common case of FAFO, a little faffle, if you will. We got another angle that kind of shows us a little better of what happened. This guy walked up. The entitlement throughout this entire clip is just insane. Kristi Noem is giving her full-on press conference. There is no question. It's not a Q&A session. It's not like he walked up and he gave a question out of turn. No, she was giving her full presser. You're going to hear that and see it. And he just barges in, getting closer and closer to the podium. Check this out.
Madam Secretary, I want to know why you insist so I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this.
Hands up, hands up.
Also, I want to talk
Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to talk about specifically.
This is what he wanted, and that's exactly what he got. Wait, guys, I've got another angle. I just want to make sure we got the full grasp of the situation. Kristi Noem giving her presser, and then Alex Padilla, the California senator, thinks he is entitled to come up, conduct his oversight in the middle of a presser. And that makes this all right. Secret Service quickly snapping into action and taking this guy out the room and throwing him in the cuffs. Check it out.
Guys ready and balancing. Sir, hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to talk about specifically how many of our ICE agents have been docked
Props to Kristi, Noem, for continuing with her speech, just like nothing happened, so unfazed.
Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go ahead, put them behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat. Other hand, sir.
They always cry when they got exactly what they wanted. Like, what else did you think was going to come from this? You got exactly what you wanted.
I did not know. There's no recording allowed out here per FBI.
Okay, and then they stop our guy from recording, but we got the gist. We see the full story. I mean, the entitlement from these loonies on the left makes no sense. We've got Governor Gavin Newsom, that California governor, deciding that he's going to chime in. It wouldn't be right if he didn't, correct? He says, if they can handcuff a U.S. senator for asking a question, imagine what they will do to you. Oh my goodness. The boy who cried wolf, Gavin Newsom. This man barged into a press conference that he was not invited to participate in, and then began interrupting, shouting over Kristi Noem, almost getting picked up on the microphone. And you didn't think he was going to get carted out in cuffs by Secret Service and FBI? I mean, come on, guys. This guy's not above the law. Then we got Homeland Security chiming in to Gavin Newsom's original tweet, speaking on if they can handcuff a U.S. senator for asking questions. Imagine what they'll do to you. Homeland Security responding, saying Senator Padilla chose disrespectful political theater and interrupted a live press conference without identifying himself or having his Senate security pin on as he lunged towards Secretary Kristi Noem. Mr. Padilla was repeatedly told to back away and did not comply with the officer's repeated commands. Secret Service thought he was an attacker and officers acted appropriately. Secretary Noem met with Senator Padilla after and held a 15-minute meeting, but they won't cover that though. She still gave that, even after he tried to storm the podium, rudely interrupting her press conference, she still took the time out and spent 15 minutes after the meeting to speak with this man. That's insane. I mean, it just shows how, big of a people we got on the right versus folks on the left. You would have never heard anything like this. They would not have spoke to the senator. Hats off to Kristi Noem for handling herself so, eloquently in that situation. Her professionalism, her poise, she did not quiver, she did not shake. She kept going with the message. And that's what you got to do, because ultimately she was trying to give a message. Thank you to all the men and women in our military and the LAPD, the officers, law enforcement that were responding and dissolving the situation with these LA anti-ICE riots. Then we got Senator Alex Padilla quickly coming to X. They have to play the victim at every single turn, every corner. He tweets out and says, if this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, and to day laborers throughout California and across the country. We will hold this administration accountable. Dude, you barged into this meeting and you think it's justified? This is your oversight? Come on, man.
I will say this. If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. We will hold this administration accountable.
You can't make this kind of stuff up, guys. I mean, they are so quick to point the finger and say the Donald Trump administration is abusing their power. But yet they show up and do things like this, and the Dems were quick to rush to their side to try to defend Mr. Padilla's actions. We got Cory Booker here, Mr. Filibuster himself.
If you can make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive, when does it stop? He's a United States senator. And if you could force him to kneel to his knees violently, when does it stop? What does it say to other Americans who want to speak up? What does it say to other Americans that want to exercise their constitutional duty? What does it say to other Americans this weekend when they want to peacefully protest? What does it say to other Americans from humble backgrounds who know poverty, that if a United States senator who stands up to do his job can be made to heel, driven to his knees, violently handcuffed, what does it say? What message does it send? Everybody in this body should see that this is a crossroads. They treated a member of the United States Senate violently after he identified himself, dragged him out of a room, threw him upon the ground, and put him in handcuffs. Every member of this body should object to that. Why? Because the statement was that he was disrespectful. That is unacceptable. That is offensive. That is un-American. When you drive a man to his knees in the United States of America, that is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong. This is a test. This is a crossroads. This is a day in which the character of this body will be defined.
Oh my God, this stuff is truly laughable coming from Senator Cory Booker. I don't get this. You know, they're trying to say that there's a time and a place. That's all I'm getting at. There is a time and a place. He's saying that folks aren't allowed to speak up. What does this say to folks that want to speak up, exercise their constitutional rights, their oversight duties? We have no problem with that here. I'm going to tell you that right now. We have no problem. But again, I'm going to say that there is a time and a place. There was definitely not an appropriate time for him to just stand up. Actually, he just burst in and started screaming and shouting, getting closer and closer to the podium. I think the Secret Service, those agents, did exactly what was warranted. And you know we're right in this situation when even the loonies on the left-wing mainstream media outlets are covering it as if this man, Alex Padilla, was a criminal. He is in the wrong. Check this out.
Here you have this senator, Alex Padilla. Can Kristi Noem speak? Could you have waited till she finished to ask your questions? To shout your questions? You are a senator, right? You couldn't wait? So that was just you out of control because you were just losing it, huh? You, a United States senator, couldn't compose yourself and let the head of Homeland Security finish her thoughts before you asked the question. Couldn't do that, huh? Couldn't do it, huh? Here you have this.
Couldn't do that, huh? Even Stephen A. You know it's bad if Stephen A. is calling them out, and it gets even worse. We got CNN, the most dishonest of the dishonest, even able to tell the truth in this situation. Check this out.
All happened very, very quickly. The DHS secretary did not skip a beat. She just kept looking straight ahead, kept delivering her message as he was dragged out of the room trying to ask his questions. It was only then, after he was being dragged out of the room, that he identified himself as a U.S. senator. All happened very, very quickly.
Come on now. Even they're able to speak the truth. They're saying that that was the argument a lot of folks on the left was trying to make. They were trying to say that Senator Padilla came in there, he announced himself, and he was still dragged out as a U.S. senator. No, that was not the case. He wasn't wearing his Senate security pin, first of all, and he didn't even announce himself as Senator Padilla until after he's in the hands. He's got hands on an officer. The officer is pushing him out. Now he's speaking, talking about, I'm Senator Padilla. You can't do this to a sitting senator. No, that's not how this works. And there was, even then, if you don't have the privileges to barge in and interrupt crash DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference, that's just not how this thing works. CNN taking things a step further. I never thought this day would come, but CNN is right. Here we are.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, she was holding a press conference and doing a press statement. He's not a member of the press. It wasn't like a hearing where it was an open forum for senators to ask a question. He clearly showed up to a public event to create a moment and do what you're saying, sort of show his constituents, not just Democrats, but that he's fighting from his perspective. There's no doubt about it. I mean, she was holding.
Come on, man. They're trying to spark up a new fake outrage narrative. You see what they're doing to U.S. senators. Imagine what they'll do to you. Then we got Kristi Noem quickly respond. You know she's going to defend herself.
He said, if this is the way they treat a U.S. senator, you can only imagine how others are being treated in these deportation efforts. What would you say to that, Secretary?
Yeah. I think his statement is absolutely ridiculous. This man burst into a room, started advancing towards the podium, interrupting an opening statement, elevating his voice, shouting questions. People tried to stop him from interrupting the press conference. He refused and continued to lunge towards the podium, and that is when he was removed from the room. So the way that he acted was completely inappropriate. It wasn't becoming a U.S. senator or a public official, and perhaps he wanted the scene, and that's what he wanted. But I think the American people are sick of this kind of action. I think the American people are tired of this. They just want the truth, and they just want to know what's happening, and that's what we were trying to provide.
Kristi Noem exactly right in her case, saying that he wanted the scene, and in typical Democratic fashion, the next step for Senator Padilla was to take it over to MSDNC.
This question, how are you? We all watched the video. We saw you taken to the floor by those agents. How are you doing?
Yeah, look, I'm okay. I've been on the phone off and on with kids, right? Because my kids travels fast in this day and age with technology to make sure they're okay. But I think most importantly is the outrage that I hope people feel. If this can happen to a United States senator for having the audacity to ask a question of the Secretary of Homeland Security, the same questions for and requests for information that we've had, not just the last sort of week or so of the activity in Los Angeles, but since the beginning of the administration, then just imagine what can happen to anybody in the country, for that matter.
We heard from you briefly at the press conference after you came outside of the federal building in Westwood. We've heard more extensively from Secretary Noem and the Department of Homeland Security, and I want to just tell you a little bit, because I'm sure this has been a whirlwind, about what they've been saying. Secretary Noem said that you, quote, lunged towards her at this press conference. The Department of Homeland Security said the Secret Service believed that you were an attacker, and the Department of Homeland Security called this political theater. What's your response, and what's your version of what happened?
Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. It's a lie, but par for the course for this administration, right? So here's the stage. Look, I was in the federal building here in Los Angeles for a scheduled briefing. Just as when my colleagues and I had to go all the way to Guantanamo Bay to begin to get information about that facility being used as a detention facility, they've been non-responsive to requests for information. And so I had scheduled, they approved, a briefing with representatives of the Northern Command in that federal building. We were there prior to the 10:30 original appointment date when we caught wind that Secretary of Homeland Security is going to be down the hall at a press conference. And our briefing was now delayed because of that press conference. So since the secretary has been non-responsive, I figured let me go over and listen to what she has to say. Maybe we can glean some information here.
So let me make sure I understand that.
So the whole time, right? We're the whole time being escorted in this federal building by somebody from the National Guard, somebody from the FBI. I've gone through screening. This is a federal building. And so tell them, let's go listen to the press conference. They escort me over to that room. And I'm sitting in the back of the room behind the cameras, behind the reporters, listening. And at one point, it was just too much to take. Not the first, but the second attack on the political leadership of California and this notion that Donald Trump and Kristi Noem had to come in and rescue the people of Los Angeles from Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. It was too much. And so I spoke up. I introduced myself. And said I had a question. Look, they said I wasn't wearing my pin. My polo says United States Senate. There was no threat. There was no lunging. I raised my voice to ask a question, and it took, maybe half a second before multiple agents were on me.
Okay. Once again, he's the victim in this situation. I just can't believe this guy. That false victimhood that these folks on the left feel entitled to just does not make sense. And I don't think it ever will to me. We got Alex Padilla here. You know the internet always keeps its receipts. You know, come on. Alex Padilla tweeting out many times over the last couple of years that no one is above the law. Donald Trump is not above the law. He's saying in 2021, I'm ready. Trump is not above the law. In the United States of America, no one is above the law, including a former president. Like, that has been Alex Padilla's thing, yet he still thinks that no one's above the law except for him. He thinks that does not apply to himself, but it applies to a sitting president. Absolutely insane. And then to wrap this whole thing up, I just wanted to give some time to shine a light on the message that Secretary Kristi Noem was trying to put out there and deliver before she was rudely interrupted, thanking the brave men and women that put their lives on the line, our servicemen and women, our law enforcement men and women that put their lives on the line in order to de-escalate the LA anti-ICE riots. Check out what she was trying to get out there.
Enforcement who have been working every single day to bring law and order and peace back to the citizens of Los Angeles and to the state of California. As you know, we've seen under this last week some operations that have been working to bring in criminals that have been out on our streets for far too long. Our HSI and ICE individuals have been out conducting operations with our government partners to make sure that these criminals, bad actors, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, traffickers, and drug traffickers are brought in and brought to justice finally under this administration. I do want to thank the men and women of law enforcement. They've been absolute rock stars in what they've done to protect this community and to protect this city. I want to specifically name those that are under the umbrella within our components, under the Department of Homeland Security. That has been our ICE officers who have been on the front line out there interdicting with many of these dangerous criminals. Also, HSI with their investigative skill set and tactical teams have been absolutely imperative to us in helping us make sure we're running operations and really targeting these bad actors. Our Federal Protective Services and also our Border Patrol agents have come and been partners with us in an incredible way. They bring a skill set that has helped us have a whole of government approach under the Department of Homeland Security that has never happened before. The assets that they have and the willingness to do their jobs that this president has allowed them to do has been absolutely incredible. But what you see standing behind me, too, is also other federal partners that have come to the table that are here to bring safety and security to the city of Los Angeles. I want to specifically thank the Army. I want to thank the Marines, the National Guard, our soldiers, our military men and women who have shown up here to help make sure that we have security. Not only do they protect our country around the world, but they're doing it every single day here in the United States of America, too, and doing it as service, public service to the people in this country because they took an oath to uphold the law. We also have a U.S. attorney here who has been aggressive, has been making sure that we don't pick winners and losers in this country, that the rule of law will be followed, and that people who break the law and perpetuate violence will be brought to justice. They will be prosecuted, and there will be consequences for that kind of activity.